In today's world, we find ourselves increasingly disconnected from the way we are meant to live. Modern society, with all of its conveniences, has led us down a path where people are sicker, unhealthier, and more stressed than ever before. Chronic illness is on the rise, fertility rates are falling, and the modern lifestyle is taking a toll on our bodies and minds. It's clear that we are not living as we should be. Testosterone levels are at an all-time low, and many aspects of our current lifestyles are contributing to this decline. The food we eat, the stress we endure, the toxins in our water and most of the products we use, the lack of physical activity, all of these factors are killing our natural vitality. Here at Optimal, we are a team of passionate individuals dedicated to fighting this rapid decline in masculinity. We believe that men can reclaim their health, vitality, and strength. And of course, the most vital part of this mission is to address the critical issue of testosterone, an essential hormone for physical health, mental well-being, and overall masculinity. So in today's video, I'm going to be ranking 20 ways to manage stress for optimal testosterone levels. So first of all, why do we actually want to control stress, or cortisol, for optimal testosterone levels? Well, to really simplify things, basically testosterone and cortisol are both steroid hormones, and they share very similar pathways in the body. And so they compete with each other. If you have high cortisol, you're going to have low testosterone because they're going to be competing. So if you want to have optimal testosterone production, you're going to want to get your cortisol levels down as low as possible. And you do that by controlling your stress. So I've created a tier list here of 20 common methods that people use to control their cortisol levels. And I'm going to be ranking them from amazing to good, half decent, waste of time, and of course, avoid at all costs. Now the criteria we're going to be looking at is we want methods and techniques that will lower your cortisol and control your stress without negatively impacting testosterone, or even better, things that raise your testosterone through other mechanisms. So if you have a supplement that makes you feel calm but has an estrogenic effect, then that's going to go in avoid at all costs. We don't want to be using that because although it might help your cortisol levels and help your stress, it's also going to have an estrogenic effect, and therefore it's going to be counterintuitive to actually use that. We're looking to lower stress so that we can raise testosterone. So let's start with the first on the list then, breath work. Now breath work, the scientific evidence is very clear, is going to significantly lower your cortisol. It's easy to include in your life, it's free, you don't have to pay anything to engage in breath work. Positive benefits of this are undeniable. And of course, there's no research or any evidence that this lowers testosterone. Why would it? What would the mechanism be? So I would put this in amazing. Easy to incorporate in a healthy lifestyle. It's quick and it's free and it doesn't negatively impact testosterone. So I'd put that one right at the top. Right, so next on the list we have yoga. Now yoga, I would say, is similar to breath work. It can be therapeutic. There is scientific evidence that yoga decreases cortisol. People use it to manage stress. And for example, if you've got an issue with pain because you've got something wrong with your back, that can higher cortisol. And if you're going to use yoga to fix that issue, then the pain's going to go away and your cortisol is going to be improved. So yoga, again, the problem with this is that it's not necessarily free. I mean, you could learn it at home, but most people are going to have to pay to go with a class. So it's not quite as easy to implement as breath work. But I would still say yoga is good. It's not going to lower your testosterone. It's going to improve your physical abilities. It's going to make you more flexible. It's going to make you more capable as a man. And it's going to improve your cortisol control. So I definitely put yoga in good. If you can afford to go to a yoga class or you have the time to invest in learning how to do yoga, then it is absolutely a wise investment. Now massage again is similar to yoga. I mean, you're definitely not going to be able to do this at home. It's going to cost you money unless you're lucky enough to be born with a family member who knows how to do massage therapy. And in most cases, you're going to have to pay money to go to a massage clinic. But look, if you've got the money to invest in it, it's definitely worth it. It's going to help you recover from exercise. It's going to calm you. It's going to lower your cortisol, lower your inflammation. And massage does not lower your testosterone. It's going to make you healthier. It's going to make you feel better. The only downside to massage therapy is, as with yoga, it's probably going to cost you a bit of money. But again, if you can invest in it, it's definitely worth it. I'm not going to put it in amazing simply because of the fact that it's not free. Breath work is amazing because you can do Wim Hof breathing in 15 minutes and then feel great for the rest of your day. absolutely for free, no cost. It's easy to do. Anyone can do breath work, whereas with yoga, you can't just immediately be really good at yoga. You probably have to go to a class. And the same with massage. You're going to have to pay money to have a massage. So not amazing, but it's definitely good. And if you can afford to implement it, definitely do. So next on the list, we have hobbies and leisure. So again, this is a really good way of managing your cortisol, particularly if you're doing sport, if there's a competitive aspect, if you're lifting weights, if you're exercising. If your hobby has anything to do with physical exercise, it's going to increase your testosterone via other mechanisms. But just any sort of leisure activity, going out to town with friends, as long as you're not eating, as long as you're not going out to eat trashy food or smoke or drink, any leisure activity that makes you feel good, makes you feel happy, is going to improve your cortisol. So hobbies and leisure, not necessarily free, but again, everyone needs hobbies, everyone needs leisure activities to help them unwind from stressful lifestyles, to help them feel good. So absolutely, I would put this in good. You need to be having hobbies and leisure activities to help you deal with your stress. Now diet. Diet is amazing. No questions asked. There's no debate about this. If you have a shit diet, your stress is going to be worse. You're going to get ill easier. Your immune system's going to be trash. If you have a bad diet, can make allergies worse. A bad diet can make inflammatory responses worse. If you're eating shit food, you will feel shit. A good diet, everything goes back to diet and exercise. But I would argue more so diet. People can absolutely transform their lifestyles with a good diet, and this includes mental health. And there are people who have been prescribed what's known as an Atkins diet. Now, I wouldn't recommend this for testosterone. I'm just saying this to prove a point. There's people with schizophrenia who have been prescribed an Atkins diet, and their symptoms improve. Imagine what that would do for their hormone profiles, their performance. So absolutely, everything goes back to diet. I mean, your body synthesizes hormones from the nutrients you eat. So if you want to have a good hormone profile, including testosterone and cortisol, you need to have a good diet. So absolutely, diet is at the top. Now, toxins. So by toxins, I mean getting rid of endocrine disruptors. These can increase physical stress on your body and thus mental strength, because the biological is the psychological. That also includes alcohol. That's going to crash your testosterone through multiple mechanisms. Alcohol, I'm sure all of you have been hungover. The next day, your mental health is crap. Whenever I'm hungover, my anxiety is through the roof. So I'm going to have high cortisol. That's going to destroy my testosterone. And also, just by drinking alcohol, it destroys your testosterone anyway, regardless of cortisol. By avoiding toxins, you're not doing things. So usually, it doesn't cost you any extra money. And that is absolutely a crucial thing, particularly when it comes to alcohol and endocrine disruptors. If you want to have a good hormone profile, you need to be avoiding toxins. It is a worthwhile investment to replace your non-stick Teflon pan with an iron skillet. And the iron skillet is going to last a hell of a lot longer than some shitty Teflon that's going to be leaking endocrine disruptors into your food whenever it gets slightly scratched. You don't want to be cooking on those. We'll make a video covering endocrine disruptors and toxins and non-stick pans in the future. So artificial light. Now this is a lesser known one. It's not light, and I think everyone knows this intuitively. It's sunlight. If you were to just stay inside with only artificial lights, not going outside, still exercising, still doing everything else you need, just not exposing yourself to sunlight, the windows are closed, the lights dim when it's nighttime, particularly more modern LEDs, create a lot of stress on the body, and there's a lot of scientific evidence proving that being around, having a large exposure to artificial light increases rates of cancer, damages your mental health, increases stress on the body and cortisol. It is not light that humans need, it's sunlight. Artificial light is not good for us. The sun produces a whole manner of different rays, and our bodies have a very complex relationship with, whereas artificial light is completely different. There are no benefits to exposing yourself to artificial light, and avoiding artificial light and exposing yourself to sunlight is going to improve your circadian rhythm, it's going to improve your sleep, improve your cortisol, improve your health, decrease chances of cancer, improve inflammation. It is absolutely something you want to be limited. And look, there is no cost to you to turn off the bright light in your room and open the window and let the sun in instead and have that light up the room. And look, if you're living in an apartment where you've got one small window and that's the only thing you've got, if you were to just leave the window open and turn off all the lights, it would be so dark you can't see for most of the day, then that's a shame. Then there's nothing you can do about that. But as much as possible, limit artificial light, get sunlight exposure instead. Sunlight is good for you. You want to get sunlight in your eyes, improve circadian rhythm. Artificial light, not good for you. I would say this would go into the good category. It's not going to crash your testosterone level. I mean, there are so many bodybuilders who aren't holistic about it. They don't understand the negative impact of artificial light, yet they still have very high testosterone and good hormone profiles. But it does make a difference. And if you want to optimize everything, if you want to control stress as much as possible, then limiting exposure to artificial light is definitely worthwhile. And it doesn't cost you anything, usually. Now, music therapy. Music therapy, I'll be honest, I wanted to make this a list of 20, not 19, and I asked ChatGPT for a few ideas. Once I got to 15, I couldn't think of anything else, and it came up with music therapy, and I looked up, what the hell is music therapy? And apparently music therapy is just playing relaxing music into people's ears for extended periods of time to make them feel better. And look, I understand the utility of music therapy if it's been born with severe autism, or they've got some severe mental health issues that mean they can barely function in everyday life. Then it makes sense. But if you are dysfunctional enough to need music therapy in order to control your stress levels, then there's something severely wrong. And the average person trying to optimize testosterone, music therapy is going to do absolutely nothing for them. It's a waste of time. Digital detox. Now, this is amazing. I'm going to put this straight into the amazing. Social media creates a lot of stress. It's a waste of time. You don't need it. Being on your phone, getting exposure to blue light, stimulating your mind late at night with TikTok scrolling, Instagram, any sort of doom scrolling before bed is going to make it extremely hard to get to sleep. It's going to ruin your attention span, make it harder to shut off your mind. You want to be meditating, you want to be winding down, you want to be calming yourself down, having your blue light blockers on, and having a digital detox, or just avoiding social media in general, not scrolling, deleting TikTok. That is going to do wonders for your cortisol control, your mental health, and of course your testosterone and your sleep. So absolutely, digital detox, again, amazing. It's free to do. And if you are an influencer as a job on social media, and most people aren't influencers as a job, they don't need to be checking their phone all the time. Most people just have a personal Instagram or a Facebook or a TikTok. You don't need to use it. No one actually cares what you've done in the day. Delete your social media. If it's not earning you any money, delete it. You don't need it. Now, journaling, and I would say as a broad term, introspection work in general, thinking about your thoughts, writing things down. This can actually be very underrated. I think especially if you're really struggling with something, if you sit down and write about it and you open your mind up, solutions can sometimes just pop into your head. You might come to terms with something you are struggling with. Gratitude journaling is going to make you feel more grateful, obviously, and that's going to improve your mood in general, therefore improving your cortisol control and your testosterone. It's not going to have a huge effect unless there's something you're seriously struggling with that journaling somehow fixes. But again, it's free to do. It will improve your mood, it will make you a better person, and it will improve testosterone and your cortisol. So I would put journaling in half decent. It's definitely worthwhile. The only reason it's not in the good category or the amazing category is, again, if you're the average person, the effective journaling compared to breath work, diet, avoiding toxins, digital detox, it's not going to be anywhere near as. These are things you want to focus before you start. There's no point in journaling to improve your cortisol and your mood if you have a crap diet and you're surrounded by toxins and you're constantly doom scrolling, getting high cortisol from that. There's no point. Now, aromatherapy, I really should have put it in supplements, but again, I needed this to be a 20 list, not an 18 or 19. So I made aromatherapy a separate thing. And honestly, I think this does need highlighting and talking about. By aromatherapy, I mean essential oils. So that includes scented candles, that nice smelling thing in your toilet. All of that is usually considered aromatherapy. Now, there is a difference between artificial aromatherapy, so chemicals that have been artificially produced to smell good. Those are going to be full of xenoestrogens. You don't want to go anywhere near them. All of that Febreze stuff, the stuff that people put in toilets to make the toilet smell good, that's usually always artificial. Completely avoid that at all costs. It's going to be full of xenoestrogens. It's going to have a seriously measurable effect on your testosterone and your health in general. They increase rates of cancer. They're absolute shit for you. Stay away from them at all costs. But then people will try and defend the natural aromatherapy. And look, I believe, as someone who follows a holistic view of health and wellness, essential oils, natural essential oils do have their place. They're basically concentrated herbs. If someone has a respiratory infection and they're struggling to breathe, an essential oil could be used to open up their airways. They can be used to improve muscle inflammation, but using aromatherapy to control stress, so like constantly exposing yourself to a lavender essential oil, that is a terrible idea. And speaking of, well, it is true that essential oils like lavender can calm stress to a significant degree. Some have some pretty potent estrogenic effects, and actually there have been studies showing that the use of tea tree oil and lavender oil can induce prepubescent gynecomastia. Now, when gynecomastia develops in boys, it usually develops during puberty because their hormones are spiking, and if there's something going wrong, like they've got a bad diet, they're being exposed to xenoestrogens, that's going to increase their chance of their hormones messing up during this critical developmental period, and then they develop gyno. Pre-pubertal gynecomastia is actually very rare, so the fact that lavender essential oil can induce this is a pretty serious finding. So when it comes to using aromatherapy, scented candles, spraying a little bit of oil on your pillow to help you sleep at night, I would avoid all of that. Avoid it at all costs. A lot of it is going to have estrogenic effects. Of course, the artificial stuff is going to be xenoestrogens. You should stay the hell away from that. Not only could it be estrogenic, but it could also be carcinogenic. And you can't be relying on some external substance to improve your stress levels. The most important thing is addressing the root cause. If you have crap mental health because you're eating a bad diet and you've got neuroinflammation, change your diet. Don't surround yourself with lavender oil. If you have bad mental health because you use social media too much, aromatherapy is not going to fix it. A digital detox is. Address the root cause, not the symptoms. Okay, so moving on to supplements, addressing the root cause, not the symptoms. Supplements can be useful. Ashwagandha, especially, has its place. I do use it, but again, you've got to cycle it. You don't want to become reliant on these things. And the general rule is, again, address the root cause. If your life, there are unavoidable stresses in life. For example, your job might be particularly stressful, and that's your only way of earning money, providing for your family. There's nothing wrong with using stuff like ashwagandha to improve your stress as a principle. Again, you have to cycle these things. You don't want to become reliant on them, but they can be used to optimize things. I personally do use ashwagandha. But again, if you've got a huge problem with anxiety, just drinking 6 bedtime herbal teas a day, which is something I genuinely used to do when I had a serious problem with anxiety when I was about 15 years old. I used to have a huge amount of health anxiety. I constantly thought I was dying. I would look at very minor symptoms in myself and assume it was something like cancer. And so I would be constantly stressed throughout the day. Probably super high cortisol, absolutely tanking my testosterone. And you know what I did to counter that? I had a bedtime lavender tea. The fact that it was lavender makes it even worse because that's estrogenic. I actually think I'm pretty lucky that I didn't develop something like gynecomastia from the amount of bloody lavender tea I was drinking. I thank my good diet for that. But I would drink this tea 5 to 6 times a day, making myself super dozy and relaxed. It was almost like being drunk. That's how big of an effect it had on me. And yes, it did make me feel a lot calmer. It did make me stop overanalyzing things and being super anxious, but it wasn't addressing the root cause. It was actually, I wasn't engaging in enough leisure activities and hobbies. I wasn't meeting up with friends. I had a bad social life, and I wasn't sleeping properly. But instead of addressing all of those things, which when I did, it drastically improved my mental health and I no longer have any sort of health anxiety. I'm a much mentally healthier person many years later. I just went to supplements, specifically herbal tea. Now, I'm still going to put it in half decent. They are, of course, going to cost money. They're not free. Don't want to become reliant on them, but they have their place. So I'm going to put supplements in half decent. So next we have nature. Now, by nature, I just mean going outside for the sake of experiencing nature. So that's getting sunlight exposure, which, as I've already said, is extremely useful. Going for a walk through a forest, getting the fresh air in your lungs, getting some exercise, grounding. So grounding is when you form a direct connection with the earth. You take your socks off, you walk barefoot on grass or mud, and it grounds you. Now, there's a lot of debate about this. Some people suggest that this is because we're electric beings and literally being grounded improves inflammation. It's natural. We need to have a connection with the earth. Some people get very holistic about it. Some doctors just suggest that it's the sensation of walking on bare earth. Whatever the mechanism is, there is no debate that the scientific evidence shows that grounding is an extremely useful practice for improving health, decreasing inflammation, decreasing cortisol, and making yourself feel better. That is, of course, going to improve your hormone profile, testosterone, lower cortisol. And again, it's free. And if you're going out in nature, the chances are you're doing exercise, which is going to increase testosterone and decrease cortisol through other mechanisms. Next, we've got meditation. Again, meditation, immediately put it in amazing. It's free to do, it doesn't take long, and it's going to improve your cortisol and your testosterone through various mechanisms. Just in general, it's going to reduce stress and reduce cortisol. When you meditate, you feel very calm afterwards. In fact, I usually feel calm for the rest of the day. And meditation before bed can help you sleep. So again, that's another way it can improve your testosterone and your cortisol, because if you don't sleep properly, you're going to have high cortisol and low testosterone, because sleep is the time when most of your testosterone production takes place. And so meditation is definitely in the amazing category. Very easy to include in your lifestyle and will improve your hormones through various mechanisms. Now, speaking of sleep, sleep of course has to go in the amazing category. In fact, it has to go first. Sleep is where most of your testosterone is produced, so if you're not sleeping properly, you're going to tank your testosterone. And when you're sleep deprived, it absolutely destroys your mental health, because your brain needs a rest. It needs to reset. And if you're not having proper sleep cycles, you're having poor quality sleep, your cortisol the next day is going to be through the roof, and then that's going to further lower your testosterone. Sleep is crucial. In fact, there's no point in even having a perfect diet if you're not sleeping properly. It's going to ruin everything. I cannot emphasize how important sleep is for controlling your cortisol and increasing your testosterone. Next, we have cold therapy. Again, cold therapy, I'd put this in good. It's cheap, it's scientifically proven to improve your stress resilience, make you feel good for the rest of the day, prepare you for the day, give you energy, and it also increases testosterone via other mechanisms. The data on cold therapy and cortisol control and improving testosterone is pretty clear. So cold therapy is going to go in the good category. Now moving on to exercise. Exercise, that's got to go in amazing. If you've got two guys, they both have the exact same lifestyle, exact same sleep, exact same diet, everything is the same, except one of them lifts heavy weights, does his weekly cardio, and the other just has a sedentary lifestyle. The guy who exercises is going to have much lower cortisol and much higher testosterone. The evidence on that is clear. Exercise is not only good for your mental health, and so will improve your cortisol, but it directly increases testosterone through other mechanisms. Now moving on to removing stress triggers. Now I would say this can be extremely important. You could say it's included in digital detox. For some people, social media can be a stress trigger. And by removing stress triggers, I mean removing any external variables that you can control. You might not be able to leave your job, but for example, if you're in a toxic relationship that is causing you a lot of stress, causing you to miss out on a lot of sleep, taking up a lot of your time, draining your energy, that is a stress trigger, and that is going to be severely impacting your testosterone. So if you think you're in a toxic relationship, get the hell out. And that goes with any external variables that you can control. If you're in a toxic friend group and it's having similar effects on you, get the hell out. It's much better to be alone and looking for friends than not alone but stuck in an abusive friendship group that makes you feel like shit. So removing stress triggers can be absolutely crucial and have a significant impact on everything else. Now, caffeine. By caffeine, I mean controlling caffeine, because actually there's evidence that caffeine is good for your testosterone, but if you have it in a moderate amount. A couple years ago, I went through a period of extreme anxiety. Again, I would have random invasive thoughts. I would get much more stressed and angry at things, much more than I usually would. I would have trouble going to sleep. My heart rate was way higher. And like the idiot I am, I considered everything else before I considered the fact that maybe these issues were caused by the fact that I would drink a litre of black coffee immediately upon waking up. And as soon as I cut that out and I went on a detox from caffeine to reset my tolerance, I went back to just drinking 1 cup a day, my anxiety, my stress levels were hugely improved. So controlling your caffeine, I would definitely put that on good, because there are a lot of people these days who drink way too much caffeine and they are unnecessarily skyrocketing their cortisol and lowering their testosterone. But look, drinking 1 cup of coffee a day is not going to give you anxiety problems. It's going to give you a nice energy lift. It's going to help you in your workouts. It's going to help you with your work. And there is evidence that it improves your testosterone profile through other mechanisms. So don't cut your caffeine out unless you want to, but do control it and think about how much you are consuming. Now finally on the list, organization. A lot of people give themselves unnecessary stress because they don't have diaries, they don't organize their days, they've got a lot of responsibilities, a terrible planning. If you have a very busy lifestyle, you need to be organized. Otherwise, that is going to cause you a lot of stress you don't need. The only cost to organizing your life is time, and it is absolutely worth investing your time in giving yourself a schedule, a plan, creating a diary to reduce stress so that you know where you're going and you can reduce your stress. So being organized, I would definitely put in the good category. That's going to help you control your stress, your cortisol, and keep your testosterone high. So that's it for this tier list. I hope you guys found it useful. And if you're interested in more testosterone, masculinity related content, make sure to subscribe to this channel. We've got a lot more content coming. Hit the notification bell and share the video with a friend who you think has low testosterone and probably needs these tips. Thanks for watching and goodbye.